whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, students have a different schedule.
Yeah.
And they have some days where they're excited about and other days they're not. But all of it can include mindfulness.
Right.
How can mindfulness help a student prepare for any class?
Yeah. So what I've noticed in myself, in my own mind, and also in observing my students, right, is that, you get into a classroom, and this is your schedule, right? You're like, if it's a Tuesday, Thursday thing or a Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing, you're just in your groove, and I see it all the time where, the time's up for the class, there's a rustling, there's an energy picks up at the end of the class.
Scratching their head, getting things.
People putting things away. And this is before the class is literally ending. And I might feel like I'm saying something important, probably not, but I feel like I am, and you just get this restlessness, and the restlessness is at the beginning of the class too, because everybody just either came from another class or they came from somewhere, and their heads are still in that space. And so it takes a while to get focused on what is happening in the classroom. It takes a while. Does it need to take all that time? And what if you're missing something that is important right at the beginning of the class, announcements or some kind of content that you really should know, and you're too scatterbrained. And we see it all the time where there's still this conversation that's going on in your social media feed or whatever, and that's still pulling your attention away. And then, your phone buzzes or blinks or something like that during the class, and I know the feeling where it's like your attention is just like a magnet, is just pulling it towards the device or whatever it is.
Yeah, there's turbulence.
That
comes in when the students come into class and whatever.
Turbulence.
So you're finding where's that groove to set a tone with the class to have, like, say, optimal focus.
Yeah, so that gets
students.
back to the definition of mindfulness, which is training your attention in a particular way on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And so if you can get yourself in that kind of headspace before your class starts, then you're ready. You're ready for whatever gets thrown at you. You're ready for whatever interactions that you might want to have with your fellow students or with the instructor or whatever it is. So that's easy to set up. The way I look at it is, our minds are kind of like a pond of water that has a windstorm just passed over it, and so it churned up the water. Like you said, turbulence, perfect. It's full of mud. How do you see through that? How do you see through that? You can't, because it's full of sediment. So what you do is you try to, if you could control the weather of the pond, you would stop the wind, and eventually the water would calm down and the sediment would settle back down to the bottom. That's pretty much how our minds work. So we can actually, they're muddy, they're full of sediment, and the winds of change and routine and all those kinds of things are blowing them around all the time. Somebody just sent you a message and they're really freaked out about something, or something at home happened and you can't get your head out of that. You've got to call somebody or something like that. You're breaking up with somebody, you're in a relationship and it's really not looking good. All these kinds of things are happening. Turbulent winds are blowing in all different directions, but you want to be successful academically, and there are times to take care of some of those things, and then there are times that it's best not to take care of them. And if it's not an emergency, obviously if there's an emergency, you have to attend to it. But if it's not an emergency, if it's just something that's pulling your attention one direction or another, there are ways to just sort of settle that sediment out, let that silt settle down to the bottom and see clearly again. And there are ways to do it pretty quickly.
Do you have like a simple technique that you could basically explain, or maybe scenario based through? What do you have that maybe students could consider when they do sit down and their phone is buzzing and you begin talking and everything is rattling and still, the muddy water? Yeah.
This could take as little as 60 seconds. Anybody who's familiar with meditation knows that people can sit for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, right? And so you think, how do I prepare for class? Do I have to sit there for 60 minutes, But really, 60 seconds is all it takes in most cases.
Yeah, I thought I needed a mountaintop.
Right, you got to find the
upon.
mountain. You got to climb the mountain first, There's a lot of things you got to do. How are you going to be prepared for class? It's a great excuse to skip class. I had to climb a mountain. But, no, you can, if you have to be in class, you can do this in 60 seconds, and you can do it in a way that doesn't draw a lot of attention to you. You're not going or something like that,
right.
While everybody's like, what the heck? You're just quietly sitting there, we're getting ready for class. And so, again, 60 seconds is all it takes. You can do it in class. You could even do it outside of class before you walk in, whatever it takes. And I call it present moment awareness. And it's just a short 60-second meditation that I can walk you through.
And I know that we will do that in a second, but I have a few other kind of questions on it.
Yeah.
Is there anything from a physiological standpoint, like in terms of like your nervous system, that you're tapping into when you're doing meditation? Because a lot of people do think that, I hear it. I can't sit there for that long, but it's not about that. So maybe like from that physical sense, is there anything you can share?
A couple of things come to mind when you ask that question. One of them is that, when we're stressed out for whatever reason, our bodies our mammalian bodies are kind of primed into this sort of fight or flight kind of thing. And if you're feeling stress on some unconscious level, your body's saying, get out of here, go somewhere where I can feel less stressful. You're in danger, like our sort of a primitive aspect of our brain is actually registering it as danger, as a threat in some way.
Fight or flight. Yeah.
So when we're working with a mindfulness practice, we're basically on some level reassuring our bodies and our unconscious minds that it's okay. It's okay. I don't have to panic right now. Things are okay. I'm safe, And of course, safe is a word that we want to spend a little time on. So that's the second thing, right? Which is that, you can feel safe physically, but not safe psychologically or emotionally, right? You can be sitting in a space where no one's going to physically assault you, but on some level, maybe psychologically or emotionally, there's a feeling of danger. So we want to respect that, and we want to work with that. And so in mindfulness training, we think about three spheres, or three concentric circles. At the center is your comfort zone, and that's where you're feeling safe physically, feeling safe emotionally, and safe psychologically. Then there's another circle outside of that, and that's what we call your stretch zone. That's where you're pushing your envelope a little bit. I don't feel super comfortable in that zone. I'm safe, definitely safe, but I'm not comfortable. I'm working with some stuff that's making me a little bit
some unknowns.
Nervous. Yeah, some unknowns. Well put. Yeah. And then outside of that is another circle, and that's what we would call the overwhelm zone. And everybody's got different sized circles in a different time of day, in a different time of your life, or just because you're a different person, So we all have these different circles, and they're different sizes. And we want to work with that. We want to know when we're in our comfort zone, and comfort zone's nice, but that's not a growth zone. Comfort is a place where you stay the same. If you're interested in growing, and again, if you're interested in academic success, growth has got to happen. So you want to get into that stretch zone, but you don't want to tip over into overwhelm. And the things that trigger our sense of overwhelm can differ from one person to the next, or one moment to the next. And
bringing it to even coming to class, coming to class for some can be a comfort, or that can already be a stretch.
That's right.
And then when you're sitting there, and the unknown could be the new information coming in from the professor, from the class itself. And so that's really important to have and to be aware of it. But then I think about going back to our original talk about like even the distractions. When you have the distractions, now there's more that I could see as like spiking into that uncomfortable level, and now I can't even focus within my own stretch zone within my class. So it's just complementing the living in the present, not thinking on the outside.
Right.
And the last thing that made me think about that was I was once told you can be a really good student, you can be a really good family member, and you can be a really good friend, but you can't be all three at the same time.
At the same time, yeah.
And so when
That's
you come
right.
to class, that's the best time that you can be a really good
Yeah,
student.
that's right.
And so I think just it's that reminder of that present focus and within that stretch, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, and for any of us who have been distracted by one thing or another, whether it's our device that we're working with or whether it's something going on in our personal lives or whatever, you can literally sort of feel it. You can feel that distraction, and it creates anxiety because you're trying to focus on one thing and you just can't. You know, and I think that's something that we take for granted, that we're living in this distracted state and that's just the norm. But actually, we can train our minds to let that stuff go for a period of time in order to bring focus to what we're doing. And then we notice the stress actually going down.
Yeah.
You know, so distraction brings stress and focus allows it to dissipate. And so this 60-second practice, you know, it's not a cure-all, but it's a beginning to working with that, to noticing those things. Where am I in those zones? And what's it feel like to let go of that distraction and notice how things change?